Hi, my name is Michael Burris, and I'm the CEO of the South Carolina Policy Council. Thank you so much for tuning in to our 2026 candidate interview series. I would like to thank our donors and my staff for their contributions in making all of this possible. What you are going to see are candidates from both parties running for statewide office in the 2026 cycle share their platforms with you, our viewers. Our interviews will be based off of the South Carolina Policy Council's core values of limited government, free markets, and individual liberty. We appreciate you watching, and we hope you enjoy. Hello, my name is Michael Burris, and I'm the CEO of the South Carolina Policy Council. Thank you for tuning in to our 2026 candidate interview series. I'm joined with our research director, Sam Aaron, and Congressman Ralph Norman. Congressman, thank you so much for coming today.
My pleasure. Glad to be with you.
So, Congressman, you're a candidate for the Republican nomination for governor of the state of South Carolina. We're going to talk about what you would do if elected to that office. My first question is, why are you running for governor?
Running for governor, really for a couple of reasons. South Carolina deserves better from its elected officials. We got a great state. My biggest worry is we're going to turn into another California if we don't have solid leadership. We won't have the opportunity to elect a governor in 2034, 8 years, because you got to assume incumbents go in. And we just at a critical stage. What am I going to do in particular is that I have a real focus on. We have got to fix these roads and bridges. Why should you have to get a car realigned every time you get on the roads in South Carolina? They're just not sexy enough for lawmakers to put the money to it. Secondly, frivolous lawsuits. There's not a business in this state or really in this country that's not concerned about getting sued for whatever. I took a picture of a billboard then when I went to Myrtle Beach, and there must be 20 on one stretch of Myrtle Beach. They just invite lawsuits. How am I going to do that? What we need to do is change the way we select judges. The Judicial Merit Selection Committee, selected by trial lawyers and judges, to the judges that they will appear before. How is that not a conflict of interest? The other thing, we got to have a type of loser pays, where if you file a frivolous lawsuit, you get you pay the other legal fees. I'm come from the business side, not from a politician side. I was in real estate development for 30 years before I did this, and lawsuits are draining this country. Our bad roads are tearing South Carolina apart. The other thing I'm going to push big time is term limits. Everybody says you can't do it. Well, and they say that you have every 2 years in the congressional level and state rep level, you get to put people out. No, you don't. The money that it takes to run for office just invites corruption, to be honest with you. So that's just a few of the things I'm going to concentrate on day one. The corruption in Columbia, South Carolina rivals what I see in Washington, D.C. every day of the week. And we got to fix that. And people are the root cause.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to turn over to Sam to talk about taxes and spending.
Yeah, so this is the real meat and potatoes of what we do at the South Carolina Policy Council. We're always looking at the budget and trying to find ways that we can get to a permanent tax relief. And we think that tax relief is directly tied to spending. Now, over the past 25 years, South Carolina's budget has increased every single year with the exception of 1 year due to the COVID pause, right? How would you address the ever-increasing spending, and would you consider something like a cap based off of population and inflation? How would you address spending?
It's going to get better than that. For the last 10 years, South Carolina has increased, I'm trying to think, over 30%, 30 to 40% in government spending. Now, we supposedly have a conservative House and a conservative Senate. We've got a supermajority of Republicans that campaign on less government, less taxes, and where do you see it? Where has it been a tax reduction? The only way you get a handle on it is like you and I do in our businesses, where you do it here at the Policy Council, which y'all are the gold standard for reduced government. And the fact that we haven't been able to make that happen, how do you make it happen? You expose it. Call it Doe's Commission, call it a top to bottom accounting of every agency is what I'll do. And I'll identify exactly where the frivolous spending is. And, it's not that difficult to do. My executive budget will be the most lean budget in the history of South Carolina. Well, maybe since Carroll Campbell. He was what I call a businessman politician who just happened to get in politics. But for government to grow like it has in South Carolina, no. We got to really look at whatever incentives we give to companies coming here. That's a big part of the budget or the expenditures that's allotted. A lot of it comes out of the Commerce Department. But, growth for the sake of growth will not work anymore because we've got a energy problem in this state and we've got a debt problem in this state that we got to address. All that to say is I will identify each agency. I will take it to the people, to the bully pulpit when we see the waste, fraud, and abuse, and divert it, a good bit of it to roads. We got to look at just the things that we have, and I call it we major in the minor here in South Carolina. Same thing in Washington D.C., but it should be. It starts with the states, and I will do it in that way.
Yeah, I think you alluded to this a little bit in your response there, but every year as the budget process begins, the governor's draft of the budget is the smallest, and then we go to the House and it gets a little bigger, and then the Senate gets a little bigger, and then back to the House a little bigger, and the end result ends up being fairly large. So would you, in an effort to reduce the spending, use that line item veto and really get it closer to the original governor's proposal?
Absolutely. The line item veto is going to be one of my the key levers that I will use. Everybody says the governor doesn't have any power. Yes, you do. You've got it in a line item veto, and you have it, and you can go to the bully pulpit and just explain it. How do you explain the $1 billion they found last year in the budget? Somebody explain to me how that comes about and why in the major investigation of why that happened. Politicians are able to sweep it under the rug, not under the Norman administration. We're not going to do that. And I can make the case that the frivolous spending that's taken place, the 80% increase in their salaries at the last minute, that's unexcusable. You don't do that. But all that to say is I will be willing to spell it out in a line item veto. I will have a lean budget anyway that we haven't seen before. And what I will try to do is bring the lawmakers on initially, if I can. But I will tell them what's going to happen. This is where I think it's frivolous. Explain to me where it's not. And if it ends up like I think it will, they will object. They will, make the case for why it needs to be spent. But I will say this, government has three functions, only three functions: infrastructure, education, safety. That's your priorities. And we've lost focus of that in South Carolina.
Yes, and part of us, whenever we established what these issues that we were going to discuss with you were, we polled our supporters, and this question here comes from Alex in Greenville. South Carolina has a state law requiring all state agencies to follow zero-based budgeting principles annually when submitting their budgets. As governor, would you immediately enforce this law? And just for a little bit of perspective, in reviewing these requests, how it often works whenever an agency submits it to the governor's budget office to draft that initial budget, they don't lay out everything. They lay out increases and new spending requests, but not previous. So then maybe are neglecting reviewing whether these programs are efficient and deserving of money. So would you enforce this law and ensure that they're, requesting for the entirety of the amount like the law stipulates?
Absolutely. And, the way I relate it is that family who has a budget compares their income and spending each year. You have to. Now, it may not be in a spreadsheet, but most businesses have it in a spreadsheet where it shows the income, the expenses, and your profit varies each year. You can't spend the same amount. Now, how will I enforce it with agencies? First of all, I'm going to put business people in charge. I'm tired of these crony politicians who get elected and then award different seats to people that have helped them get elected. We're at the point in South Carolina, particularly with the Department of Transportation, we've got to have a top to bottom audit We've got to have leadership at the top that, as you mentioned, will enforce it. I'm going to enforce it. I will not take a report from any agency that doesn't spell it out. I don't want any general terms. I mean, there is a check that goes out or a wire transfer to pay vendors. I need to see it. And it's gotten away from us here in South Carolina, and we'll bring it back.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that the spending issue is really closely related to the tax issue. As I'm sure you're aware, South Carolina is one of the highest income taxes in the Southeast. Ours is currently at about 6%. And there's a proposal right now to get that decreased and then move towards a zero income tax. 73% of South Carolina voters support eliminating the income tax. This is what our recent poll in July found. Do you support that, and how would you go about getting there?
Yeah, I mean, I want to give money back to the people that earn it, taxpayers, not to government. And the only way you do it is, and yeah, I will lower the brackets. Now it does get me. I've been a voice for less taxes, less spending all of my career. It was 30 years in the business world. Then I've been in local, in the House up here for a short time. This will be my 8th year in Congress. Each year, I have not only said it, I wanted reductions in spending. Every rating agency gave me the highest rating. You either believe it or you don't. Now, it does get me politicians. Guess what? Around when they run for office, all of a sudden they're fiscal conservatives. Well, where's your record to back it up? I'm sick of it. And you expose them. And it's going to be in this race, we're going to point out the ones that are just saying it right now versus those of us who have lived it. And really, it gets back. Should you have people in charge of a budget that have never signed the front and the back of a paycheck? You need to have made money and lost money. You've been in the financial world. It's not all rosy.
No.
The way to learn the biggest lesson, you lose some money. A lot of these, and I call them hothouse plants politicians, have never lost money or made it. They've been on the government all their life. That's the worst kind. So all that to say is, yes, I'll gladly tell the people in South Carolina, I'm going to cut the taxes. But now, here's where the cuts are going to come. And I won't know that until I have a DOJ-type commission. But I have to explain, and this is where the weak-kneed politicians, yeah, they're going to cut your taxes, but we're all going to get a phone call. Particular agency, where's my money? You gave it last year. And they're going to have the spine and backbone to say, no, we're putting it on the 3 pillars of what government should be: roads and bridges, education, safety.
So, Congressman, we're going to go into actually a DOJ question right now. And this is for our viewers to understand currently what exists in South Carolina, and then the question will follow. So South Carolina currently has 4 agencies that are in charge of government accountability. So we have the Office of the State Auditor, the Office of the Inspector General, the Legislative Audit Council, and then the long one, the House Government Efficiency and Legislative Oversight Committee. So all 4 of these entities are meant to hold government accountable and make it more efficient. A DOJ department, which is is a bill that's been filed by the Senate in the last session for South Carolina, would create another agency to, arguably do the same thing. Would you be in favor of having a DOJ commission or committee, or would you want to leverage one or all of the other 4 agencies that currently exist, supposedly to do the same thing?
Well, let me retort to this. The 4 agencies that were supposed to reduce government spending, where have they been? Look at the record. Math doesn't lie. I can have a different opinion, but math and numbers don't lie. And where has it been in South Carolina? We haven't had it. Yes, one of the issues that drive me crazy in Washington, D.C., when bills like what you're talking about come up, they want to form another agency. Like at the federal level, we have wanted to form an agency to cut the deficit. Yet the same people that are forming this committee are voting to increase the deficit. Now, you can't have it both ways. So yes, I will ask the 4 agencies to do their job, but I'm going to put people in charge that won't take anything less. And yes, I'm going to get a DOJ commission, but it's not going to be made up of politicians. They're the ones that got us in this trouble anyway. I mean, tell me what they've done other than spend your money at the local, here in South Carolina and in Washington, D.C., yet Around election time, they are really, they're the most conservative individuals you would meet. And we're 38 trillion in debt on a national level. Social Security is going bankrupt. For all you young people, when are we going to tackle it? And, in Congress, I have 434 others that all have different interest group, different interest, and crony capitalism is killing us. In other words, people putting puppets up to do the bidding to get our money. That's what happens. And I say that everywhere because it's the truth. South Carolina the same way. We got to make a change on that. But the DOJ commission I'll put up will be made up of hardcore business people that know what to ask and can demand accountability.
Thank you, sir. So this past session, Governor McMaster and the Policy Council was very supportive of this, implemented additional rules around the earmark process. Specifically, he wanted to promote transparency in spending by bringing light to what different members were requesting in terms of community investment through the earmark process. That's an executive order. It's not in statute yet. My first question is that something as governor you would continue? And the second part of the question is, would you try to pass that into law with earmark transparency?
Yeah, I mean, earmark transparency, if that works, then it'll be the first time in a long time. Because again, I can say that in word only, but you got to enforce it. And earmarks, like in Congress, we technically don't pass earmarks. Then how does the budget grow? Explain to me why that number increases. Mine will be, and I applaud the governor for doing that, but you're only as good as your weakest link that is giving out the earmarks, which are politicians, but describing and not using in general terms where it goes. There's some museum in Greenville that they did. I forget the name of it. That's not a core function of government. There were other things that I saw just as I've been running for governor. Just looked at several things that it'd be a no-brainer for me to cut out because it's money and it means something to the state to get it right and put it where it needs to be.
Thank you, sir. We're going to now go into legal and regulatory reform. So we're going to start off just a personal context. When I started this job in August of 2024, came into my first session in January. Tort reform was the issue of the day, and it was a major issue. And I heard from a lot of folks, this is about as visceral a fight we've seen in the State House in a long time. So it's kind of a wake-up call for me to see and understand what our tort laws in this state are doing to businesses in the state, while also obviously wanting to have justice for people who are hurt and whatnot in the community. So where do we strike that balance? So again, last session, the legislature ended up passing a proposal on lawsuit reform related to liquor liability, specifically liquor liability. But there's a lot of other things out there, whether it's trucking industry, medical malpractice, that still hasn't been addressed yet. So what is your position on reforming South Carolina's joint and several liability law? And would you support moving towards a pure several liability law? And take this question as you will, but basically you alluded to it earlier, a lot of frivolous lawsuits, we have tort issues. So the floor is yours and on your opinion on all that.
This issue with, you mentioned the joint and several, that occurred because of the accident that happened down in Charleston, where a couple got married, somebody were drunk, ran into their golf cart, killed both of them, I think, which gave the trial lawyers a avenue to sue not only the store that they drank the liquor, but if they had 2 or 3 other stops, bring them in. How is that fair? It's not fair. How is it fair that if somebody in your business gets hurt, that a lawyer gets to sue the business and the person? The only way you're going to deal with it is, and by the way, they spent $44 million last year on advertising for, if I have a headache, please call me and we can make you feel better. But the only way you deal with it is do away with the Joint Merit Selection Committee, do like Florida does. We're only 1 or 2 states that choose judges like we do. Virginia's the other one. But again, as I mentioned earlier, how does it make sense for trial lawyers to elect the judges who appear before them? That's a conflict of interest. That's like asking Carolina and Clemson to pick their own referees. Do what you want. You don't do that. So we'll do, in my mind, do away with the Judicial Merit Selection Committee, let the governor pick the upper of the Supreme Court and some of the other circuit court. But the big thing is being able to recall them. They ought to have to, the judge that I was in a hearing Monday, the Columbia student who was murdered, and the father had a picture of their daughter, was shot through the head. The killer had 39 prior violations and he was cut loose, never put behind bars. That judge was a judge, and I'm calling for his impeachment in South Carolina. He was appointed by South Carolina politicians. Now, that's not right. And the girl that got killed on the subway up in Charlotte, he had 19 prior convictions and cut out on the street. The grandmother who was there, who was suffering cancer, was there for her granddaughter. She was disabled. She had some disability, lured into an apartment, raped, killed, cut up. The 4 people that did it are still on the streets. I mean, we can't have this. That's what's happened in third world countries. But now 40% of the legislature here in South Carolina, the House, are lawyers. And so they're going to protect their paycheck. And I get that, but it's got to be fair to the people. It's not fair the way it is now. So the way we select them, a loser pays that we're crafting right now. We're going to have, everything I'm telling you, we're going to have a bill when I take office in January of 27, a bill to address it. And I'm going to take it to every Rotary Club, every Civic Club, and asking, you decide if your legislators are voting up or down on this. And that's the only way I know to handle it. And I will use whatever I can do in my veto power and to the executive orders.
Thank you, Congressman. Sam?
Yeah, you alluded to this a little bit when talking about the judicial selection process. With the JMSC being written into the Constitution, it would require a ballot initiative in order to get rid of it, right? So I guess a twofold question here. One is you would support a ballot initiative to eliminate this. And then 2, I think for the average viewer, they look at the judicial selection process in kind of 3 ways. You either have the way that we do it, us in Virginia only, the way that a couple of other states do it with popular elections, and then the federal model of, nominated by the executive, confirmed by the Senate. Which of those 3 would you say you more closely align to and would favor?
Nominated by the governor with the vice consent of the Senate. That's the most fair way. And I get all sides. Since I've come out pretty strong, and I'm the only one that really would do this, you're not going to hear tort reform, and not meaningful tort reform, like the joint and several, the bill they passed last year. Tell me how that gives any teeth to anything. It's just a cover for. Is a little bit more difficult. Does the restaurant have to fill out more forms? Does the attorney get to pick, half instead of 100% of the other restaurants that provided the alcohol? Instead of 100%, they pick 50%. That's fake. I'll put up the strictest. It doesn't get the job done. I would say it's fake. It just doesn't get the job done. And I will. What I will do is get the ones who are expert on all these things. I pick people who are on the other side, who have nothing to gain. I pick the most successful trial attorney who will be up front with me and probably retired, and say, give me the toughest language that'll stop you from abusing the system. And I'll get not one opinion, I'll get a couple.
Thanks, sir. Moving from the legal side to the regulatory reform, South Carolina, we just passed this huge energy bill this past year earlier. And part of the energy bill initially was designed to address data centers coming into the state. Our state representatives have, recruited these data centers through these targeted incentives. So now the data centers are coming in, they're setting up shop. They need a lot more energy, right? And we don't currently meet the baseload requirements to give them the energy. So the result is, the energy providers, they have to increase their capacity. And rather than, billing the data center for it, they're raising all of the South Carolinians' rates. So then they're socializing the cost and then privatizing the benefit, right? So how would you protect South Carolinians from rate increases due to, say a data center?
One of the biggest issues we have, besides what I mentioned to you, the roads, the tort reform, the term limits, is our energy crisis. Now, a little known secret, we got a balanced budget amendment in this Constitution. Guess who's $9 billion in the hole? We are, through VC Summer. Now, how are they gonna handle that? That's what we've got to decide. I want to work with Santee Cooper to try to come up with some type solution. But now they have 2.4 million ratepayers. And I was just on the phone with a elderly man who had a 1,200 square foot home. He had a garage in the back. His rates are unbelievable. I said, well, ask what the base rate is. Base rate, not review, but it's a base rate charge, not kilowatt, but a base rate. And you know what I found out? It's, the glass cover that covers the meter. They're charging for that. That's got a fixed cost. That's like me selling you a house and then I send you a bill for the windows every month. No, you pay a fixed price. The casement has got I checked the cost, $500 to $800 depending on what it's made and how big. All that to say is I want to try to, we got to handle the energy problem. Not every IT company can come in here and build their own little nuclear reactor. We have I'll be reviewing VC Summer in Fairfield County and just to see what's there. But the debt is untenable. You got to have somebody like an Xterra, who I understand made a bid on it. And they've got the equity to absorb the debt. Now, if they're talking about pushing the debt onto the ratepayers, if I was a ratepayer, I wouldn't be too happy with that. That's not what's got to be dealt with. The next governor cannot be shy about dealing with this. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. I'm the only one that has talked about it. But that's kind of with a B. It's kind of a bad signal.
So, sir, you've alluded to one of the core functions of government being infrastructure. So we're going to talk a little more technical on the infrastructure side. So spending on roads and bridges in South Carolina has continued to increase precipitously. In fact, Sam has a really good piece he's releasing today on it. So we'll be sure to send it to you. But residents say they still haven't seen results of this higher spending. I mean, I drove up from Charleston yesterday and it was a bumpy drive. How would you implement policy changes with SCDOT and the road repair process? And I think a lot of folks we've been talking with kind of miss the maintenance of our current roads as being critical mass, not just building new ones, but keeping especially rural roads that can disseminate traffic throughout the state rather than clogging it on 26 or 85 or 17. So what would you do to sort of guide DOT to greener pastures, so to speak? And we know that the speaker currently has an ad hoc committee going on right now, investigating their own ways, but certainly the next governor is going to have a pretty big say.
Yeah, it is. And I've built roads before on our shopping centers, and I've done it. We know how to do it. We made mistakes in our projects. But what's happening in South Carolina is atrocious in that you can't throw money at this without finding out where the money has not worked in the past. And the way you do that is you send people who are experts in the field and just evaluate each department in the DOT, which a lot of them has good people, but you got to have leadership at the top that one can knows what they're doing, send qualified people in, and then enforce it. You know what the maintenance program in South Carolina is? Throwing asphalt in a pothole and letting you get more in the car than you do in the hole. The sub base, 50% of the roads, secondary roads, have to be replaced from the subgrade up, meaning it's more than just throwing asphalt in. The bridge I came over coming to Columbia, had 3 fillings that got loose, and a neck adjustment I'm gonna have after going over the bridge. All that to say is this is not a problem that's that it's going to be hard, but it will be in my mind, it'll give me satisfaction to correct it because I know how to do it. And it's going to take more funds. I'm not going to increase the taxes to pay for it. I'm going to find the reprioritization, I guess is the best word I know to use it. But when you have, and the federal government put out a book that I'll send y'all if you want it, but it rates all the 50 states. Guess where South Carolina is on our airports? D. This is as of 24. It's at F now. The runways. People think we have a great runway system. Guess where we're on wastewater? D. And I would make the argument F. Guess where we're on our back roads, which lead the nation in fatalities on our secondary roads? D and F. Guess where we are on lines for our water? D. People wonder why their water is brown when it comes out of the faucet and buy drinking water. It's because the lines haven't been maintained. And 62% of our roads are maintained by the state, but we have to empower the state. But you got to get people who know what they're doing involved with it, not bureaucrats or not career politicians or not somebody who is looking to fill a slot and get a position. So it would be a top to bottom overhaul, and it's not going to take long. Just like we see Trump in the White House, 4 years of total disaster. He had to have a bill to close the border. No, he did it in 30 to 40 days. We can fix our road system. It's going to take longer because it's had 60 years of neglect. But we're going to fix it, and we're going to make it a priority and show the people. I'm going to take the politics out of it. A lot of the power positions in Columbia, look at where their roads are. I know one road that in Florence that I could literally pitch a tent on, has brand new asphalt. I could pitch a tent, sleep for a week and not see a car. How does that work? It doesn't. That's money that should never have been spent. And you, like you do in your special business, like all of us do, you prioritize and you follow through with it. And I will do that with the roads.
Congressman, you mentioned that 62% of our roads are controlled by the state. Would you think about or consider disaggregating command a little bit, maybe saying, hey, Greenville, Charleston, Horry, sort of our bigger parts of the state that can maybe handle maintaining their own roads, or even at the municipal level like Charleston, Greenville, Myrtle Beach? Would you ever consider letting the state kind of give those back to municipalities and counties to maintain?
That'd be one of the first things I would do. The 7 district offices need to be evaluated. The best government is closest to the people where you hold them accountable. And so, yeah, I would get the funding and get no one knows the conditions of their individual roads than the people that travel on them daily. And you turn that power back to them, and you give them some guidelines that they need to follow. C funds is not enough to adequately do the job in the counties. The gas tax is not, we just are going to have to cut the waste and fraud, and we're going to put it in something that everybody uses in this state. Well, 2 things: they breathe air and they travel the same roads.
I wouldn't disagree with that. Congressman, we're going to move on to our last section here, which I'm just going to warn you is Sam's baby, and that's education. So he loves some education. So Sam, take it away.
Yeah, I think the first one, this is an issue that we've been working on a lot here at the Policy Council, is the topic of grading floors. And what a grading floor is say a student doesn't turn in homework in the classroom, right? What they should get is a 0 because they didn't complete anything. But the district tells the teacher, don't give them a 0, just give them a 50 because they didn't turn it in. And the idea of this, I think it's rooted in compassion, right? We're trying to be generous to people. But the result is you got a lot of kids that are getting higher grades than what they actually earned. And you got kids advancing grade levels when they haven't mastered the material. So would you consider getting rid of, a policy like that and banning that and ensuring that, the grade that a student gets is the grade that is entered in the grade book?
What you're talking about, Sam, is just what's happened in sports. They want to give not to have a winner. They want to give everybody participates. How stupid is that? I mean, it doesn't make sense. And we've lost our education system. And by the way, if it's working, why are we rated 41st in the nation in just about every category? We're not teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic, and we're not teaching the students how to compete. Why do you think people are going to homeschooling? Why do you think people are going to private schools? And they're the ones that ought to be livid, because 42% of our of the taxes we pay through millage, it goes to education. And I think there were 2,300 individual schools, and the private schools are like in the 200 to 300. They're approaching now a third of the student body. That means empty classrooms in the public schools. Now they have to be held accountable too. I would look at and I've voted every year to abolish the Department of Education. They're a bunch of bureaucrats, and the money does not follow the child. I'm a big proponent. You let the money follow the child. When people ask me, I'm for public school, I'm for private school, I'm for homeschooling. The name of the game is get the job done for the child. Prepare them to go out. And these woke teachers, you need to fire them. You need to get rid of them. A lot of them just aren't teaching the things that they need to be teaching to prepare that child. You only have one shot at educating your children.
So, Congressman, Sam and I were talking about this actually earlier today. Mississippi has gone from 48th in the nation to 18th in education. And we kind of got underneath the hood and we're like, what do? They started holding back kids in third grade. It's a very specific age. This is all new information to me, but in third grade, if they cannot read and they cannot write at a third grade level, they get held back. And then there's a hyper focus on phonics, basically the course of instruction hooked on phonics, something of that nature. And they have jumped in 10 years from being at the bottom of the barrel to near the top. And so we were just encouraged and with all the folks that we're talking to saying it can be done. We can get there, but it's going to take some boldness basically at the end of the day. But I don't know if you've seen that news about Mississippi. But
yeah, I did. When I saw that, I said, Mississippi? What are they doing that we aren't doing? But it's ABCs. And this needs to apply at every level. You got to have people who, A, for accountable, B, you got to be bold, C, you got to have courage. I know whenever I took a vote up here when I was in the House against anything perceived to be against public education or the funding, I'd get hundreds of emails. So I started calling some of these people. I said, why'd you write me this? Well, I picked the ones I didn't know. They said, what'd you get from me? I said, an email. It was the administrator. She'd never heard of it. And you got to hold these administrators, the superintendents and those in the higher offices. But if Mississippi can do it, I think South Carolina can do it.
I know.
But you're exactly right. It's going to take it's going to be a bloodbath. But I don't care. It's the child that we care about. We've allowed administrators and others who talk a good game. But look, everything you can measure, most everything in life, put measurables to it. I had a grandson at Citadel. He's walking tours now. It's consequences. But it's consequences. And it's having set standards that you meet, like evidently what Mississippi's doing. And it's not just in school. I had a company that the other day that was active in my race. And I said, he was starting a brand new company. I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to Mississippi. I said, why? He said, well, the regulations, I got a permit in 5 days. He said, here I was going to take months. I said, I will fix that. That's not going to happen if I'm governor. It's just not. And so education has to be accountable. You got to hold the teachers accountable, and you need some metrics to measure outcomes with teachers. I know a lot of the teachers that are just filling space, they get retreaded. I mean, they shift them around and put them in another office or put them in another area. Look, if they're not doing a good job in the business arena, you get fired. And we're scared to do that because, again, lawsuits. And let them do it. But when are we going to take the position the child matters? Same thing in criminal justice. When are we going to take the position it's the victim? when are we going to take their side? Not the criminal. And so it's kind of one big cabal to work with.
Yes, sir. Well, Congressman, I hope your grandson had fun doing whatever it was that got him tours, because that's the real metric right there. Was it worth it? We're going to close out here, Congressman, with two more small questions. First, is there one thing, if you're elected January 2027, what is the first thing on your mind that maybe you didn't have an opportunity to talk to us about when you walk into the governor's office in the State House?
First thing you've got some good people. I would get them all together and lay out the plan that you and I have talked about, the things I've given you. As I tell people, I can't just say these things. I got to do them. And we've got people who will put the legislation up, but I'll follow through with it. I had a lady yesterday that had a list of things. She said, I've always heard politicians talk about it. It never happens. I said, and you won't until you start demanding that politician see you at your meeting, demanding, if it's a just cause, demanding to pass it, or at least making the strong advocacy. As governor, you're one voice. You can do that. And that's what I look forward to doing in all these different areas. But I get the people that work in the agencies now and give them a chance. But I put metrics in place where we can measure it. And it's going to be a big task for me. It really will. But it'll be a task that is so rewarding because I know what like in education, 41st, I think the only way we can go is up. I think if our roads are, we lead the country in fatalities, I think we can go up. So we're going to make an improvement, but it's all about the ABCs: accountability, boldness, and courage.
Congressman, as we close out here, any closing remarks for our viewers watching you as you continue your campaign?
I have got a list of all the, I guess, honors that I've gotten for conservatism, not anything else. And I'm 96%. Don't buy into what people say. Buy into what they do. If you are going to get surgery, you find out what that surgeon, what's his record on that particular surgery. Or if you, are getting on an airplane, that pilot, how many successful landings. You need to look past that. They know what to get with me. Now, a lot of people may not like it, but they're going to get it. And it's going to be conservatism, giving money back to the taxpayer, and going to work.
Congressman Ralph Norman, thank you so much for your time. Thank you all for watching at home, and we'll see you next time.